In the early 1970s, few stars shone brighter than Ali McGraw. She wasn't just Hollywood's newest leading lady, she was its symbol of purity, elegance, and impossible romance. But behind the soft eyes that captured millions on screen, her real life was spiraling toward a crossroads that no one could have predicted. At the height of her fame, a single choice, one born from passion, confusion, and a longing to be seen, would destroy the life she had built. And decades later, she would finally admit the truth that shocked even her most loyal fans. Hollywood's darling. Long before scandal shadowed her name, Ali McGra represented everything Hollywood adored. She wasn't just another rising actress, she was a phenomenon. With her expressive eyes, dark hair, and quiet intensity, she embodied a new kind of beauty for the 1970s. Elegant, yet real. Confident, yet vulnerable. When Love Story premiered in 1970, audiences didn't just watch Ali McGra, they fell in love with her. The film, about two young lovers torn apart by tragedy, became a cultural event, earning 7 Oscar nominations and turning Ali into a global icon overnight. It was a dizzying ascent. Only a few years earlier, she had been a model working in New York, posing for fashion magazines and assisting photographers. Her transition into acting had been almost accidental, a leap of faith that paid off instantly. Critics praised her natural presence, calling her the face of a generation. Suddenly, she was everywhere. Magazine covers, television interviews, and premieres from Los Angeles to London. Even her personal style, minimal, effortless, and unpretentious, influenced how women dressed for years. At home, she seemed to have the perfect life. Her husband, Robert Evans, was one of the most powerful men in Hollywood, the producer behind Rosemary's Baby and Chinatown. Together, they lived like royalty at Evans's Beverly Hills mansion, hosting parties where the guest lists read like film history. Warren Beatty, Roman Polanski, Jack Nicholson, and Henry Kissinger. To the outside world, they were the couple everyone envied. Successful, attractive, and seemingly untouchable. But beneath that glamour, Ali was restless. The life of premieres and power lunches left her unfulfilled. Evans adored her, but his world revolved around deals, scripts, and constant attention. For Ali, whose success had come so suddenly, the applause began to sound hollow. She had achieved everything a woman could dream of in that era: fame, fortune, and a family. Yet something essential was missing. She later admitted that she longed for authenticity, for something that felt real amid the artifice of Hollywood. By 1972, the cracks were beginning to show. Evans' work consumed him, while Ali's career continued to rise. When an opportunity came to star opposite Steve McQueen in The Getaway, Evans encouraged her to take it, proud of his wife's success. Neither could have known that this decision would open the door to one of Hollywood's most scandalous and heartbreaking affairs, when Cool walked in. It began, as many Hollywood stories do, on a film set. In 1972, director Sam Peckinpah invited Ali McGraw to star in The Getaway, an action thriller opposite Steve McQueen, the most magnetic leading man of his generation. At the time, Ali was still married to Robert Evans and was hesitant about taking the role, but Evans himself encouraged her. He saw the film as an opportunity for his wife to show range beyond romantic dramas. What neither of them could foresee was how that decision would forever alter their lives. From the moment Ali met McQueen, she sensed danger. "The second I saw him, I knew I was going to get in some serious trouble," she later admitted. McQueen's energy was raw, unpredictable, and impossible to ignore. He wasn't like the polished studio men she was used to. He was rough around the edges, a rebel who carried both menace and vulnerability in every glance. On screen, their chemistry was electric. Off screen, it was combustible. What started as quiet fascination quickly became something deeper, more consuming. As filming went on, the tension between them became impossible to hide. crew members whispered. Photographers lingered longer than necessary. Evans began hearing rumors, though he tried to dismiss them. But by the time the getaway wrapped, the truth was undeniable. Ali and McQueen were no longer just co-stars. They were lovers. It wasn't a calculated scandal or a publicity stunt. It was the collision of two people who mistook chaos for connection. When Ali left Evans, the tabloids exploded. The glamorous producer had been betrayed by the very woman he had made a star. To many, she was the unfaithful wife. To others, a woman who followed her heart. For Ali, it was both simpler and more tragic. "I just dropped everything and went with Steve," she confessed years later. It wasn't reason, it was instinct, a kind of surrender. In 1973, she married McQueen, and Hollywood called it the union of beauty and danger. But what began as passion soon turned into something far more complicated. Beneath the fame and the romance, Ali was about to discover the true cost of loving a man like Steve McQueen, and how easily love could turn into control. Living in McQueen's world. At first, life with Steve McQueen felt like freedom. After the whirlwind of Hollywood parties and studio meetings, Ali McGra found herself in Malibu, surrounded by the ocean instead of executives, by silence instead of flashbulbs. Their beach house became their sanctuary, a refuge where they could escape the chaos that fame had built around them. For a while, it was beautiful, she later recalled. They cooked together, sat by bonfires, and reveled in the illusion that love alone could fix what fame had broken. But that peace didn't last. Beneath McQueen's charm was a man still haunted by a childhood of abandonment and violence. His need for control, which had once made him magnetic on screen, began to dominate their home life. He despised Hollywood's superficiality, but his rejection of fame came with its own rules, rules Ali was expected to follow. She stopped working, stopped taking calls, and slowly began to disappear from the career she had fought to build. "I played cook, cleaning lady, simple woman to the hilt," she admitted years later. What she had mistaken for simplicity was, in truth, submission. McQueen demanded privacy, but what he really wanted was control. He chose who their friends were, when they saw people, and how she presented herself. His jealousy flared easily. A glance, a phone call, even a memory of her past life could trigger arguments that left her shaken. "He didn't want me to work," she said plainly, years later. For a woman who had once been at the top of the industry, it was a quiet and devastating exile. In time, the life that had seemed like an escape became a kind of confinement. She had traded the noise of Hollywood for the silence of submission. The ocean still roared outside their home, but inside, her voice was fading. What once made her radiant, her independence, her curiosity, her spark, was now buried under the weight of keeping him calm. By the mid-1970s, the woman who had captured hearts around the world had vanished from the screen. She wasn't gone, not yet, but she was no longer herself, and the cracks in their marriage were beginning to show. The turbulence behind closed doors. As the years passed, the cracks in Ali and Steve's marriage widened into chasms. The idyllic Malibu home that had once felt like an escape began to suffocate them both. McQueen's moods could change without warning. Calm one moment, explosive the next. He had grown up in chaos, and in a cruel twist, he seemed to recreate it wherever he went. For Ali, love became a balancing act, predicting his temper, avoiding his jealousy, trying to make peace in a home that rarely knew it. McQueen's demons ran deep. Abandoned by his father and neglected by an alcoholic mother, he carried an unspoken rage that no success could soothe. The man the world saw, confident, untouchable, the king of cool, was in private fragile and suspicious. He demanded loyalty but gave little trust in return. When Ali spoke to other men, even in passing, his anger flared. "There was always an element of danger about him," she said years later. His unpredictability kept her constantly on edge, never knowing which version of Steve would walk through the door. Alcohol only made things worse. What had begun as quiet evenings by the beach turned into tense nights filled with drinking, arguments, and regret. Both of them fell into the same trap, numbing pain instead of confronting it. Their arguments weren't just about jealousy or fame. They were about identity. McQueen wanted control, and Ali wanted peace. But every compromise she made seemed to erase a little more of who she was. Infidelity eventually followed. Whispered affairs, denied but never forgotten. For McQueen, it was proof of power. For Ali, it was an escape from loneliness. The tabloids thrived on their unraveling, but the truth was darker than gossip could print. They weren't villains to each other, just two damaged souls who loved fiercely and destructively. By 1977, it was clear the marriage couldn't be saved. What had started as passion had turned into pain, and what once felt like destiny now felt like defeat. That year, Ali walked away, not out of anger but out of exhaustion. She had given up her career, her confidence, and nearly her sense of self. But the story wasn't over. Steve McQueen's final chapter was about to begin, and with it, a loss that would haunt Ali for decades. The death that changed everything. When Ali McGra left Steve McQueen in 1977, she wasn't leaving out of hatred. She was escaping a life that had swallowed her whole. The marriage had drained her of ambition and confidence, but she still carried love for the man beneath the anger. They had both been broken in different ways, and though she no longer lived with him, their story didn't truly end until fate intervened. In 1979, McQueen was diagnosed with pleural mesothelioma, a rare and aggressive cancer caused by asbestos exposure. He was only 50, still at the height of his fame, but the disease moved quickly. He tried experimental treatments, traveling to Mexico in search of a cure. Nothing worked. When the news broke, Hollywood mourned its icon, but for Ali, the pain was deeply personal. "There was never really closure," she said later. "It's very sad to me that as sober, grown-up, non-sexually connected beings, we didn't get to sit down and clean it all." McQueen's death on November 7, 1980, hit her harder than she expected. Despite everything, the jealousy, the fights, the silence, she had loved him completely. His death felt like the final theft, robbing her of any chance to make peace with the past. She attended his funeral quietly, away from cameras, and afterward withdrew from the world that had once adored her. "I was so in love with him," she admitted years later, "even when it was impossible. In the years that followed, she spiraled through grief, depression, and alcohol. Without McQueen, there was no one left to fight, only herself. Her fame had faded, her marriage was over, and Hollywood had moved on. What remained was a woman searching for meaning after losing everything that had once defined her. Her healing began not in front of cameras, but in a treatment center. At the Betty Ford Clinic, Ali confronted not just addiction, but decades of emotional dependency. A lifetime of trying to please others at the cost of herself. For the first time in years, she wasn't the wife, the mother, or the star. She was just Ali, broken, sober, and finally honest. The man who had burned through life so quickly was gone, but his absence forced her to rebuild her own, rebirth and reflection. Recovery didn't happen overnight. After years of living for others, Ali McGra faced the hardest task of all, learning to live for herself. The Betty Ford Center gave her a place to confront the patterns that had shaped her entire life. She realized that her need to please, to keep the peace at any cost, had been there since childhood. Her father's alcoholism and her mother's volatility had taught her to survive through silence and charm. Loving Steve McQueen had only deepened those wounds. "I made myself disappear in that marriage," she would later confess. But this time, she refused to vanish. Leaving Hollywood wasn't an act of retreat. It was an act of survival. By the early 1990s, she sold her home in Malibu and moved to Tesuque, New Mexico, a quiet village near Santa Fe. There, away from the flash and noise of Los Angeles, she built a life defined by simplicity and peace. Surrounded by nature, she painted, gardened, and dedicated herself to animal rescue and community work. Fame no longer mattered. "I have wonderful people in my life, and I feel incredibly blessed," she said in a 2024 interview. Over the years, Ali became a symbol of grace and resilience. She spoke openly about her mistakes, her heartbreaks, and the way she had allowed love to eclipse her sense of self. "I married some wonderful men," she said, "but I never told anybody who I was. I wanted them to read my mind." Those reflections didn't come from regret, but from understanding. At 86, she no longer carried the pain of her past, only the lessons. Her definition of love had changed too. "There are so many kinds of love," she told an interviewer during the Love Story reunion. "There's friendship love, ex-lovers love, ex-husbands love, kid love, your animals. Love is enormous." After a lifetime of heartbreak, that revelation was her peace, that love doesn't always mean holding on. Sometimes it means letting go. Ali McGra may have once been known for the affair that ended her marriage, but her real legacy isn't scandal or sorrow. It's survival, the quiet, courageous kind that turns loss into wisdom and pain into peace. Ali McGraw's journey is one of love, loss, and rediscovery. Proof that even the brightest stars can lose their way and still find light again. What do you think her story teaches us about love and forgiveness? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and join us for more untold Hollywood stories. Hollywood.